My Motion Graphics. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another My Motion Graphics tutorial. My name is Gustavo Maia, and today I'm going to talk to you about the Illuminati. So what is the Illuminati? Well, in this case, the Illuminati has nothing to do with a conspiracy about a secret society that rules the world. So if you want to rule the world, well, you just can't use it for that purpose. I mean, you can try, but it probably won't work. So the Illuminati is an illumination setup that can render your scenes with a smooth, great looking feel to it, and it's incredibly fast to render. Okay, so first of all, you should get the Illuminati from mymotiongraphics.tv. Install it. You'll have some info about how to do it next to the file, and come back in a minute. I'll wait for you. So, done? Great. Now, let's stop with the chip chat and let's get started. Okay, so here we are in Cinema 4D. I'm using R15, and as you can see, I have this object over here. This will be our test subject today, and I already changed my render settings to something like HD, so 1280 by 720, and I set my anti-aliasing to best. Now, let's just make a quick render and see how this looks. Not such a good thing, not so good. Okay, no problem. Let's just close this for a minute and let's go into our content browser. Look inside these presets and you'll find a folder called MMG The Illuminati. So My Motion Graphics The Illuminati, just open that and drag The Illuminati over here. And if you zoom out a little bit, you can see that the Illuminati is this setup with several lights over here. But before I explain what's happening and what you can do with it, let me just show you a quick render without doing anything, so you can see how it looks. All right, let's go. 1, 2, 3, and it's done. Pretty fast now. So it was 1 second, and you can see the difference from one to another. And I don't have any ambient occlusion or global illumination setup. I have nothing. All I did was just dragged the Illuminati into our scene, and we have this soft kind of, looks like a little bit like ambient occlusion and stuff. But let's take a look at how this works. So select the Illuminati and go into the Illuminati tab. Let's just bring this up a little bit. And actually before that, let me just create a material so we know what we're dealing with. So color, I'm going to stick with this almost white color, practically the default settings. And specular, I'm going to change it a little bit, just a little bit, nothing too fancy. Drag it into the letters and make a quick render just to see. Looking good, looking good. I can actually increase a little bit the specularity, just a little bit. So height, and reduce the width, and make another render so I can have a little bit of this, sharp, kind of artificial reflections, Great, so this is looking good. Now let's talk about the Illuminati. What can we do with this? Well, the Illuminati is divided in 4 different parts over here, and you have shape that has this object, and I can talk to you a little bit about this in a minute, but let's skip this part and let's go into complexity. So the complexity is, let me just drag the slider and show you. So the more complex you get, the more lights you'll end up with. So that's complexity, and let me just show you. If I increase the complexity to about like 55%, as soon as I render it, the whole thing will look way too bright, because obviously we have a bunch of lights. Let me just show you, and it will take a little bit longer to render, just a little bit, and as you can see, it's totally exploded, way too bright. So in this case we have to tweak the intensity down. Okay, so that's why we have the intensity over here. so that we can tweak and adjust the light so it kind of looks, you know, better, maybe even less. Okay, once more. And okay, so the more lights you have, the longer the render will take, but it's still really fast. Okay, so this is the complexity, and the radius is kind of obvious. So if I increase and decrease, you can see that depending on the size of your object that you want to render or your scene, you might want to adjust this. Okay, so next object. Now we're going to talk about this. Now let's imagine that I have a floor or something and I don't need all these lights. I just need like half of them. Or maybe I want to make a different setup. Instead of a spherical setup, I would like maybe a cubic setup. So let's just create a cube for this purpose. Let's create this cube and make it bigger. Oops, bigger. Okay, like so. Let me just change my display type to something like constant shading lines, and this will be enough. So if you select Illuminati, you can drag the cube over to object, and now I have a totally different setup, right? And as you can see, there's a light on each point. So 4 lights on the top, 4 lights on the bottom. And if we render this, we'll see nothing because we have our cube visible in our render and it's blocking out the lights. So let's just hide it from the viewport and hide it from the render. Now do not disable the object because we actually need the object to exist in order for this to work. So make sure this little thing over here is active. Okay, now let's make another render, and we're going to do this a lot today. Renders. As you can see, it's a little bit dark just because I only have 4 lights, but I can increase intensity and just make another quick render. It's so fast that I don't have to worry about it too much, and it looks good. One thing that it can do is, or one thing that you can't do if you change the object, is to use this slider. It just doesn't work. And the radius, it won't work as well. This is only used for the sphere, okay? If you actually want more lights in a different object, and you know, I have a cube over here, you can have wherever you want, you can make several experiments, but depending on what you want. But I have a cube, so if I want more lights, all I need to do is add more points to our cube, and for that, let's select our cube and increase the segments. As you can see, we now have more lights, and this will probably be more than enough just to show you how it looks. Okay, obviously we have more lights, and because of that we need to decrease the intensity. Now I'm just guessing over here, so don't want to take too much time, but I guess you see the point, and it looks good. Now what can we do? Oh, another thing, and if you want this to work again, the complexity and the radius, and to go back to where you were, instead of having to, you know, undo it and then undo and undo it again, you can actually open up this little thing over here and just drag this sphere, icosahedron sphere, over object, into object, and now you can use the complexity again, and you can use the radius again, and it works. Now let's just make another render so we can see what we're talking about. Okay, looking good. Now we've talked about intensity, and these parameters have to do with the light. So you have inner angle and outer angle. I guess you know what this is. So if you've used the spotlight before, you probably know what it is. Good tip is the smaller the angles, the more shadowing, or the more shadows you'll get. So let me just hit render again. So I don't know if you see the difference, but you get more shadows. It kind of looks interesting. Let's look from here and make a quick render, and great. Okay, now color, let's just change this a little bit, or actually let me show you one thing that I haven't talked about, which is this show object. If I show object, I can actually see my object, the object that's creating all the lights. And as you can see, our object is kind of reddish on the bottom, which means that this light, for instance, is casting a, like a reddish light. So we can change the colors of the light just by just tweaking this gradient. So let me try something way different. So for instance, blue on one side and maybe kind of pink or something on the other. Okay, and let's try it. So this show object is just used for you to understand and kind of get a visualization of what's happening. But you can leave it on or off, it doesn't really matter because it won't appear on your render, although I would recommend you to shut off because it's not really easy to work this way, right? And as you could see, we have a totally different result, and I guess you can understand what's happening here, and this kind of looks interesting, right? This is a regular gradient, so you can work around this, create maybe another one, and I don't know, maybe try something like that, make another render, and you'll get totally different results, and it still looks good. So this is the color, and another cool thing is the load texture. Now, load texture allows you to bring a texture over here and use that image as a color source for the lights. Now, let me go into our content browser and try to look for an HDR file, so an HDR image. You don't need to use this, okay? It doesn't need to be an HDR. You can just use whatever image you want, but you know, HDR are usually prepared for the spherical projection. So let me go over here, Prime. If you have the Prime version or the Studio version, you have this folder called Prime, and inside the folder you'll find another folder called Materials. Let's go in there, and another one called HDRI. So double click on that again, and as you can see, there's a bunch of materials over here with HDR already applied, but we actually want the image which is inside the texture. We don't want the materials, we want the images. And let's try to pick one that has several colors. I don't want something monochromatic. I want something with a lot of interest, a lot of different colors, so we can actually see the results. And as I'm speaking, I'm actually trying to find one that kind of fits the purpose. Now let me try this one. So once again, we're still on our Illuminati, and I'm going just to drag this image over to load texture. And if I render this again, it won't make any difference. It will still be this pink and blue and whatever. And to make something out of it, you need to raise this mixed texture, and this is a cool feature. If you drag this slider over there, let's just show it our object once again and bring this back so you can see what's happening. And if you drag this mixed texture over here, you can see that the texture is actually mixing itself with the color, so you can get kind of interesting results with this. But let's just try it at 100%, so all image and no gradient. So let's go over here again and make another render and see how it looks. So this image now is being lit by the actual, this object is being lit by the actual image, which is really cool, I guess. Let's just look for from another angle, and it renders really fast. It's almost like global illumination, although you don't have those bounces, so the light doesn't bounce, but you get the idea, you know, the light coming from everywhere, and you kind of have this ambient occlusion shading going on over here and over there, and it looks good, and the renders are extremely fast. Now, one thing to point, if you increase the complexity, you'll get more complex lighting. So as you can see, we have, I can just over my mouse over here, But you can see that we have bright lights, we have blue lights, we have some dark lights. We'll actually won't catch that, won't create that much light, but we get a very interesting thing. But as I told you before, if you increase this too much, it will actually take way longer to render, and it will get brighter as well. So let's try to render this at 100% and bring down the intensity, because we don't want that much light. Let's try 15%, and I'm honestly not sure about it. And to help me a little bit over here, I don't want to see all of this. Let's just hide it from our viewport. Sorry. Okay, and let's render it again. Okay, it's rendering, and as you can see, it's going to take a little bit longer. So you'll have to wait, be patient, and it may be too bright or not. I'm actually not sure, but you know, I think you get the point. And 25 seconds, 26 seconds. Okay, 44 seconds. Not that bad. But again, I don't think why you should do it, why you should use it. I mean, if you can render it faster, so what's the point? But you know, it's up to you, so just try it out. Let's show our object once again, or I'm sorry, let's unhide our object from our viewport, reduce a little bit the complexity, and let's talk about some of the stuff. Now, shadow maps, well, I guess you know what it is. So basic shadows, basically this is the standard most important features of the shadow that you can adjust. For example, the sample radius. If you're making an animation, you probably want to push this a little bit up, but I would recommend that you will try first, make some tests, because the bigger the value, the longer it will take. And the bias, I don't know how to call this, it's kind of an artificial, I don't know why this exists, but I know what it does, and it kind of creates distance from the object to the shadow. So if you have an object standing on the floor, this value can make a slight spacing between the object and the shadow. But you know, it comes usually the lights. Let me just bring a spotlight over here. Usually the lights, they let me just go and create the shadow maps. Usually lights come with the 2 preset value. So let me just delete this, and we have as well the 2, and it works fine, but you can change that later and try it for yourself. And the sky, we have a built-in sky, so you can see the sky from the camera. So let me just shut this off for a minute. And I'm honestly not sure how it looks right now, because we've been changing settings. So let me just increase the complexity a little bit, or actually let me just decrease the complexity and increase the intensity. And okay, great. So let's try scene by camera. And nothing happens on a viewport, but if we render, we'll see the background with this shading, and it might be useful because, you know, it fits together. You know, it makes the object part of something, and the background, and so the background and the object kind of look similar in a way. So it might be useful, and it's a sky. So if you look from the bottom, you'll actually see the blue on top. Let me just make a quick render again. You'll actually see the blue on top, and this looks pretty good, pretty awesome. A little bit, you know, girly, I know, but you know, I could change the colors just to be more manly. I think that would be a good idea. Yeah, let's change the colors. I don't want to stick with this. So let's just go something like green, and I don't know, I have no idea, but let's try yellow, Brazilian type. Okay. So another render, and totally different result, but still very cool. The background looks terrible. Make this a little bit brighter. Okay, like so, like so. I don't want to waste too much time with this. I'll leave it up to you, but you know, I think you get the point, and I hope you agree with me that this is pretty cool. Next, scene by reflection. So if you have an HDR, let's just bring the HDR once again, 100%. So if we render this, we'll actually see the HDR on the background, and as you can see, our object is totally different. So the colors are totally different from the colors from the light. But let's just uncheck the scene by camera and check the scene by reflection. But there are no reflections, so let's create some. Let's bring this material over here that we set to our object, and let's create a reflection channel. And let's bring the texture way down, like maybe 40% maybe. And before I render, let me just show you a pretty good tip. Reflections usually take a lot of time to render, okay? So it's one of the things that will increase your render time a lot. And a good tip for you to reduce that time significantly, that was hard to say, is to come to your render settings and go into options. Inside options, you'll have a value of reflection depth. And if you decrease this value, you'll get way faster results, okay? So it will still take a little bit to render because of the reflections and all, the ray tracing and all that stuff, but it will just be a little bit faster. It will make the difference, believe me. And let's just, before I just try, let me just talk a little bit about this and explain what it is. It's basically, have you ever been in an elevator where you have one mirror in front of you and another mirror in your back, and as you look into your the mirror that's in front of you, you'll actually see the reflection of the reflection of the reflection of the reflection. It looks like you're in a big tunnel or something like that. Basically, that's it. So the reflection depth will limit how many reflections will be of the reflections, right? So I hope I made myself clear. Just dig into that if you didn't understand. Don't want to waste too much time on this. And let's make a render. Now obviously we have reflections and it's gonna take a little bit longer, but take a look at this. It's still extremely fast and it looks gorgeous. We have the reflections of our environment, of our sky, right? Of our HDR that we applied over here, and the scene by reflection is working great. Now another thing, if you want to try to use global illumination with it, you can, obviously you can, but it will take longer. But if you actually add, let's just say global illumination, so effect, global illumination, I mean, you can try. It was not created for that purpose, but you can still try, obviously. So if you create, if you render an image with global illumination, the HDR will not act, so will not work with that global illumination unless you check scene by global illumination. So all global illumination is doing right now is calculating the bounces, so the light being cast from the light sources, from the Illuminati, bouncing in around, and not the luminance being created by this this thing over here, okay? This low texture, this HDR. So the HDR will have nothing to do with global illumination unless you check that in. I'm not sure if I want to wait for this render. Really not sure. We have a bunch of lights and global illumination will honestly take a while, so I'm not gonna wait for this. You can try it if you want. Yes, I'm gonna stop this. Okay, that's pretty much it. You still have this project tab over here that you have usually in, I guess, every single light that you can find in Cinema 4D. Over here, um, you can use this for regular purposes like to include an object, or maybe usually to exclude an object from being lit, and so on. Can be useful. I guess I said it all, maybe. I guess so. The Illuminati is a really cool plugin that you can use, and it will help you a lot for sure, but keep in mind that it may not be the solution to every single render that you want to do. So it's fast, but it can take longer to render depending on your render settings, and depending on other stuff like materials, reflections, transparency, specularity. There are all of these things that can increase your render time or just make your renders not look as you expected. But it's still a great addition to your 3D arsenal. So I guess that's it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to click the like button, share it, subscribe if you haven't already, keep those comments flowing and all that good stuff. My name is Gustavo Maia for mymotiongraphics.tv. I'll see you in another video. Until then, bye bye.